Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. We are going to be talking about different ways that you can customize RoadEng for better design. But really, more importantly, we're looking at different ways you can customize RoadEng to give you some efficiencies in your design process. So my name's Erin. I'm one of our resident webinar hosts here at Softree. And with me, of course, I've got Matthew Dickey, who does the predominant amount of our English webinars. So today's plan and a little bit of an agenda for you is really all about these different areas and aspects in the software that we can customize. If you're not too familiar with RoadEng, perhaps this is not the best introductory webinar to be participating in. We're not covering kind of what the software does. We're going to be covering really about different ways that you can customize it. And those different ways you can customize it are sort of grouped into two big categories. So our first category of customization is really all about the interface. So this is what the software looks like. We're going to talk about how you can customize the ribbon, in particular the quick access ribbon, to contain tools and functions that you want faster access to. We're going to talk about how you can set up keyboard shortcuts for some of those functions that you might want keyboard access to. We'll talk in depth about what screen layouts are, how you can set them up, what they do, and the role that they can play in the design process. And we'll also talk about adjusting the visual properties in panels, as that's not as well known as other aspects of our windows. The other side of things, we're going to be taking a look at how you can customize your design elements in RoadEng. So we're going to talk about customizing an import specification, customizing your road design standards and the templates and tables that are inside the software for that. We're going to talk about cross-section templates, one of the most customizable things we've got, ground types, culverts, and then finishing off with the other very customizable thing we've got, which is multiplot, our paper output. Today's webinar format is going to be a little bit different. We're going to do a whole bunch of jumping back and forth between Matt and myself. So we're going to be tackling all these different topics, quick with an introduction, talk a little bit about what the customization is in more detail. And then I'll pass it over to Matt. We'll go in software. So to get started, a couple pieces of housekeeping. You're going to stay muted. If you've been to a webinar before, you know that's the case. But for those of you new here today, you are muted throughout the webinar. But we certainly encourage you to ask us questions throughout the webinar. You can enter those into the GoToWebinar panel, and we'll tackle them at the end of the presentation. I think we've got a pretty healthy amount of time saved at the end. Okay, so our first topic is all about customizing the quick access ribbon. And this applies in all of our modules. So the quick access ribbon, you can see it here kind of highlighted in the box. This is available either at the top of your window or just below the ribbon. And it contains common functions. Many of you probably don't know this, but you can actually customize that ribbon to contain any functions you want in the software as long as they're found in one of our ribbon menus. This makes it really simple to get faster access to functions that you use all the time without the need of changing your ribbon tabs. So with that, for our very first topic, I'm going to pass it over to Matt, and we're going to go in the software and learn how you can customize your quick access ribbon.
All right, so I am in terrain, but this is one of those things that behave similarly in location as well. So for this, if I want to change what's in my quick access ribbon, I can right click, and doesn't matter what tab you're on, so I could do it over here as well. So customize quick access tools, and here I can add in well, whatever I'd like. So usually if you're doing this, you're focusing on kind of common tools that you may use, and you don't go through a bunch of different ribbons to find them as you need them. So for me, I'm going to add in my insert file, and I will also here, and let's look at terrain modeling, and we can add in, well, maybe we're modeling a lot of tins and we want to have it easier to get to that particular button. Next, instead of being up here, we can shift it to be down a little easier to find by checking that box, and we can click OK, and there we are. So I've got insert file available. And if I had some features in this file, I would have access to my calculate volumes button here. So with that, I'll hand it back to Erin.
Awesome. So that was our first topic. Now you're hopefully getting a flavor for how this webinar is going to go. A lot of back and forth. So our next topic, as we go through and learn about customizing RoadEng, really applies only if you're working with conventional survey data. If you're importing LiDAR, this doesn't apply to you. If you're working with DEM data, this also doesn't apply to you. This is really for, sort of that point codes and features that are coming in, like total station. Yeah, so we've kind of got an example up here on the screen of what that might look like. In the software, you have the ability to create an import specification. And this really takes all those points and all that data, has a sort of a way to read it. It's a way of describing to the software basically how to take that data and import it and what you should do with it. And it's got a lot of power in that. You can automatically group and join features. You can add line work. So in this very rudimentary illustrated case, we can take these point codes and define the different features. We can connect the features. We can add symbology, change their line types. But really, it has a whole bunch of huge benefits. It saves time after your initial setup. You can reuse it. And I think this is the big efficiency driver. If you are surveying and have a very similar format to how you survey each time, it gives you the ability to reuse that same format between your projects so that you're not taking the time to worry about defining the different point codes and what their line types should be. So it gives you a lot of consistency and efficiencies. And here's just an example too of the other piece that you can include in an IOP, which is defining which line types, or features I should say, become break lines. So a model without break lines has a very different look than a model with break lines. They have a very important role to play in conventional survey data import, and you can have those features defined as break lines as a part of your specification. So with that, we're going to go through and just take a look at some of the efficiencies of defining an IOP, how to use it. And I should say, this is a bit of a disclaimer. For all of our topics today, we really are going to just skim the surface of the topic. I think a lot of these, I think there's about 5 of them that we could do full webinars on. So today it's really about showing you what can be customized, talking about it, how you can reuse it and get those efficiencies from it. So with that, we're going back to Matt.
So still in terrain, and we're going to insert a file, and I'm going to bring in some conventional surveyed data. And here we can see a list of all of the IOPs that I've previously set up and saved as part of my defaults. So as Erin said, I'm not going to dive into all the nitty-gritty details here, but if I were to bring this in with one of our defaults without any codes being assigned, we get something that looks like that, where we've got each surveyed point. We can click those feet, we can see what they're named. But the benefit of an IOP is if I bring in that same file, but I use an IOP that has been previously set up that has my point code set, so things like my fence line are going to be connected as a polyline and have the symbology I'd like associated with them. When I hit OK, now we've got something that is much different. We've got all those dots connected. We can see the spot shots called out. We can see our tall legs, etc. Now with this, you aren't stuck with those, stuck with what I've created. In this case, if I wanted to do something like change my top of bank line work or settings, now I've got this brought as a break line, which is good, but I don't like that line work. So if I want to avoid the same frustrations over and over again, I could come in here and we could say, well, that top of bank feature, maybe I want this to be a teal line I'm going to change my line type. So let's go with that one there. And we'll change our symbol at the vertices. So we'll hit OK. And now, well, that changes place. So all my top of bank shots now reflect the changes that I've made. And in this case, I'm happy with. I like it more than the kind of hatch feature for my points, and I like the color. So in this case, if I were to just close the software, it would prompt me. It would say you've changed your import settings. You want to save changes. If I want to be proactive about it, I could go up to my setup and module setup. We can click import. So we have access to all of that stuff that we did when we first brought it in. We can scroll down to the one that we see, and we can open it up if we want to look at something. But the big thing here is if we want to save this as our default in the future, so the next time we open the software, it keeps those settings. We can click Save as Default, and away we go. So for this one, now that we've changed that IP and saved the settings, the next time we open a file, or sorry, open a new instance of train, and here I'll use an entirely different survey file. It's, again, big reason for setting up these defaults and saving your defaults is streamline things for the next project. So we'll go with that. And all my top of bank shots in this survey are formatted the way I would like. And then last bit mentioning about IOPs, and I'll just kind of sprinkle this in. If I want to make something very similar to that, well, training one, if I have it highlighted here when I have it selected, it's going to base it off that. So it uses the one that you selected as its starting point, and then you could customize this and build something out that's similar but different for something that might you might want to have a different option in your list in the future. So with that, I will hand it back to Erin.
Yeah, and one thing to note there too, all of those IOPs can be shared. So if you have someone in your organization, perhaps that is new to RoadEng, you can share all of those IOP files with them so that they can leverage them. So it is, yeah, shareable, importable, and a good way to get someone set up. So our next topic in our customizing RoadEng journey is one that we internally at Softtree actually try to avoid, especially in webinars, because you have no idea what we're doing when we use them. But keyboard shortcuts outside of the webinar context are extremely powerful, especially when you are doing a function over and over again. For example, joining points. Being able to hit Control-J on your keyboard is really powerful. So you can, for functions that perhaps you do on a routine basis, you're able to set up your own keyboard shortcuts. So these are ones that we have not defined in the software out of the box, but you can create them yourself. So similar to how we were adding functions to our quick access ribbon menu, you can do the same thing with keyboard shortcuts. And some common examples of these, if you want to leverage the explode function perhaps in terrain, generate tin, you can just hit a quick keyboard stroke. Location, the recalculate dialogues, instead of having to find it, you can go ahead, set those up, and in the example I've got here on the screen, I'm defining the recalculate one, and it'll tell you when you enter the shortcut that you're wanting if it already exists in an assignment. So that is something to be aware of. So with that, I'm going to pass it back to Matt, and we'll take a look at how to create keyboard shortcuts.
Alrighty, so this is one that I use a lot, but then stopped using because, as Erin said, a lot of my job is talking to people and show them how to do stuff, and you can't see what I'm doing if I'm just using quick keys or sorry, keyboard shortcuts. But they save a bunch of time, especially for things that you're doing over and over again. So for me, the big one is if I have, say, conventional survey data and someone messed up the point codes and we want to play connect the dots, I use the explode feature fairly frequently. So for this, one way to do it without the quick keys is to just right-click, modify selected features, break, and we can see after explode, it's not telling us what the keyboard shortcut is because it doesn't exist. If I want to do that, well, going into a right-click or going into my feature tools, I'll go up here and I'm going to click keyboard shortcuts. I'll customize. And we'll go down to feature tools. So break at all points. And here, if I, let's go. Feature tools. One I like to use for this. Break is Control Q. Break at features, Control Shift Q. So break at all points, I like to use Control Alt Shift Q. So we see it's unassigned. We'll click assign. We'll hit close. And now I'll just highlight that. And there we are, we've exploded it. So now if I'm playing connect the dots, I can grab those ones here. And then I can grab these ones here. Oops. And I can save myself a little bit of time rather than having to navigate to where to access that tool. Yeah, so keyboard shortcuts. Generally, generally I think most of the commonly used ones already have some defaults associated with them, and from the default settings without having to go and place in the interface to customize them. If you right click, it'll tell you what the default ones are next to them. So with that, I'll hand it back to Aaron.
Perfect. And then for those of you watching, Matt used Control J to join those on his keyboard. So that, yeah, really fast, efficient way to control, oops, I pressed the wrong button to get the screen back, to be able to use those functions. So our next topic, as we continue our journey, is all about our panels. So we have a couple key panels. There's one in terrain that is called the feature properties panel. It displays some important status information at the bottom of it. And then in location, we have our Project Explorer panel. And again, it contains some important optimization and alignment data at the bottom of it. Both of these panels have the ability to be fully customized to show the different attributes and fields that you are interested in. And a great example in the feature properties panel to mention is you can go and define different shapefile attributes. So if you've brought in data from GIS, you can actually bring in those different shapefile attributes and include them here in the status portion of the feature properties panel. So a really powerful customization if you want to be able to look at your data, not through the standard fields, but you want to see some other information. So with that, we're going back to Matt, and we're going to take a look, I believe, at just the feature properties panel for now.
All righty. So we'll stay in this same example just for the sake of simple. I'm going to just model my surface really quickly here so it's a little easier to see what we're looking at in this particular example. But yeah, we've got our list of attributes over here that we can see. And if I click on this feature that goes around the outside of the stockpile, I can see the area being reported. So one common thing that I'll use in this status panel is changing that or adding in another attribute to show my square area. So we'll do that. And so now instead of considering that as 0.1 hectares, which isn't really that useful area, I can see in my project units, which are meters, well, I've got 714 square meters occupied there. With this, now this is just a CSV that I brought in with my survey data. So I don't have a shapefile or the shapefile attribute or KML attributes, but if I had brought in a KML or a shapefile, the attributes just added in their own folder with the shapefile or KML name, and then expand it like this, and the list is the attributes in the table. So as Aaron introduced, that's another useful one. Another thing that I find useful is if I'm interested in the grade from a particular point. So I've just got that point selected here. We can go into the forward and backward leg. So my forward leg, we'll add that. So slope N is slope next, and the backward leg is slope previous, so slope P. And we can see that being reported in 1% going in either direction. Now with this, if we were to say want to crank up the number of decimal places we're reporting there, we can do that. Now the decimal places reporting in the panel are controlled by your default settings. So we'll go in here and we'll say, let's go 3 decimal places. And there they are not, in fact, identical slopes. It's just that they were within that margin of error, or not margin of error, but the precision. Yeah, a useful one to be able to look at stuff without just cluttering up your entire drawing with the labels or having to dig around for attributes. So with that, I'll hand it back to Aaron.
Awesome. Okay, our next topic is all about screen layouts. So this one's a little bit more in depth. Let's start, just a little bit of theory about what a screen layout is. So a screen layout inside of RoadEng, it applies to all the different modules. So in terrain, even in survey map and location, it really is a way of saving all the details of your window size and position, the scale that's included in those windows, and then it also controls the window content. So in the data window, it'll control the different fields, columns, as well as the reporting frequency. It'll control in your plan, profile, cross-section, etc. It'll control all the labeling that you've set up, the frequency and the format. It'll control the line types. It'll control your shading and display settings, your sub windows. So if there is a particular way that you like to have your screen set up with all those different pieces of content, you can use a screen layout to save that and apply it to new projects. It's really, really powerful. So you could go from, and this is my lovely little example I've got here, you could go from this top screen layout and literally go to the screen layout button, click your favorite layout, and almost, pretty much instantaneously with a click, convert your project into the sort of view that you want to work with it in. So screen layouts are really powerful. You can use them to control your views for different parts of the design process. So for example, if you are doing your horizontal alignment, you can have a layout for that. If you're doing your vertical alignment and you want to have some more earthwork balancing visuals added to it, you can have a different screen layout, and you can toggle between those screen layouts as you work through that design process. Another place that screen layouts are really powerful is if you're working on different project types. Different project types probably have very different requirements in terms of what's being displayed in the windows and the content. So you can save those. And then most importantly, you can also share your screen layouts. So screen layouts are shareable to colleagues so that they as well can benefit from having that sort of pre-set up standardization of the different windows and the different content within them. A couple notes before I pass it to Matt. In terrain, screen layouts include multiplot. So multiplot in terrain is a single page operation, and it's included within your screen layout. So if you've got one set up, you can save it as a multiplot screen layout. But it's a regular terrain layout. In location, multiplot is not included in your screen layout. We have given them their own different layout files, and we'll cover that later in the webinar. And then also a couple other notes in location, corridor surfaces and their settings are not included in screen layouts. But beyond that, screen layouts, again, really powerful for driving efficiency and standardization in your projects. And with that, let's go play and take a look at screen layouts. Matt, it's coming back to you.
All right. So I'm still in train, and I will just mention it in passing. You can save your screen layout for all the stuff that we've messed around with. So if I wanted to open the software and have square units and slopes next and my 3D view visible, we could use it as a document if we set up our multi-plot, but yeah, we can see it here. For me, I find the location is really where I'm using the functionality a lot more, because it's, yeah, if I'm doing like a wind farm project versus a ditching project, there's different things that I'm interested in. So this example, I've got the road designed, and I can see my default layout where I got my plan view, section view, data view. I'm going to move this around to match what I like to see. So for this, I'm going to position the panels as I like. I'll move that over here. Now I tend to like my plan, say there. I've got my profile in the background, or well, not the background, but just set behind. So I could click on it to activate it. I can also use the buttons down here to switch what view is active. And for me, I usually like that profile view off to my left. So one thing, I like my windows in a certain position. Now the next thing, I might want to adjust how things are shown in here. So my profile view is, of course, very important. And right now I don't have my grades being shown. So if I want to show my grades, right click, file options, and I'll go into my labels and I'll turn grades on. So here we'll say I want to see 1 decimal place. So I can control my number of decimals being reported independent of the default settings that are up in the setup. And there we are. So we've got that. And then if we want to do other things like change your line type, or maybe add another line into the mix, we can. And these generally behave similar across the various views, but I'll go in here and I want to add a line for my ditches. So ditch inside left and ditch inside right. I'll click add, and I want that to be a, we'll go teal, and we'll just do a hairline. So now we can see that ditch line in our view as well. So if I wanted to save this, I would go up to my view tab and I'd hit save. And here I'm at kind of a decision point. So if I want this to appear when I open the software, I'm going to save it in this default directory. So it'll default to your C drive, program data, soft tree, and RoadEng 11. And I'm going to save it as normal.dlt. Normal.dlt is what the software uses when it opens it. So I'll hit save here. It already exists. Do I want to replace it? Yes. So I've just changed my default settings. So that one's set. I'm going to go into location, and we're going to just check something out when we new file here. And well, there we are. So we've got all those settings that we just set up appearing for us. I'm going to close this one that I've just set up, and I'm going to keep working in this one here. Another thing that I think gets glossed over, and I don't talk about it as much as I probably should, and I should have saved it in here, is my scale. So usually I like to have everything set on a particular scale. I would set that at 1 to 2000. I work with an exaggerated scale in view set at 1 to 2000. I would typically lock this. So as I zoom in, my text gets bigger, but that scale stays the same. So we're magnifying it. We'll do the same in our profile view. Like that, and then I'll lock that as well. So that's another thing that typically if I'm saving my defaults, I will have that set. And that's an introduction to screen layouts. I'll use them again later, just as in passing. But with that, I'll pass it back to Erin.
Perfect. Okay, so we just talked about screen layouts. Our next topic is about design standards. So now we're going to kind of stick and stay in the location module and talk a little bit about design standards. And these are really your road class specifications. So there's a whole bunch of different details in the road class specifications that you can customize, but there's also 4 different tables that you can customize. These are like lookup tables essentially for super elevation, max side friction, transition length, and widening. And you can update these to your country or industry standards. And then there's a lot of folks, because depending on where you are, we work off of AASHTO standards by default, leveraging just the defaults available in the software. So if you'd like to learn to customize them, this is your topic. With that, we're going back to Matt. And I guess it's worthwhile mentioning we're going to be over time. Here we are thinking we had this beautiful cushion of extra time, but no, that cushion is gone. So, Matt.
It's funny how that works.
Every webinar.
All right. Everyone. So I've got the same design and design standards. I think the most prominent spot where those settings become are with curves. So for this, I'm going to right click. I'm going to add in a curve here. I'm not going to go crazy with it or anything. I'll hit circle, and let's change this to be a 100-meter curve. I'll hit apply. So if I want to go and add in another curve somewhere else, sure, we'll do it here. Oops, and so I hit apply. I forgot to hit this button. I want to set it as my default curve. So now when I go over here and I decided like to apply a curve here, well, I've got those same settings being pulled in from my curve that I hit this button here. So I'll hit apply. Well, with this, I currently have, so that's kind of setting what appears in the boxes when you click OK. What it's not addressing is what's being populated in the portion that has auto set next to it. So that we're going to go click our road class specifications button. And here I've got simple curves turned on. So the only auto table that I'm populating is my widening table. So with this, we can see, and we can just read the header, but the first row is our change angle and column is our radius. So if we have a change angle of 20 degrees on a 20-meter curve, it's going to add a half a meter widening. If we want to change what is being used here, we can click open and we can use whatever we'd like. Now I've got a bunch of tables in here. These are easy to customize. So I'm going to just open this with the Notepad. So it's just a plain text file. You can modify it however you'd like as long as you follow the format. So this one's tab separated. You could also have the extension set as CSV, and you can define those curve widening tables as a CSV. And then the big thing is you can just go in, click open, and well, here I've changed it to something quite different, and away we go. And now that I've changed that widening table, well, auto set, and it's pulling in a different value for those standards. Yeah, so, and we can change the table. Other things in this list here, we can set our minimum max grade, so it'll provide a warning if something's going on. If we turn off simple curves, we get something that changes the view around, and suddenly we have a lot more information that we can pull from with those auto settings for things like transition lengths or super elevation, etc. So all of those tables set up in the same kind of manner, a TBL file that's really easily edited, and you can do it in a regular text editor to set them up as you like, or yeah, Excel is great because it's a little easier to keep things organized and just save it out of Excel as a CSV. Yeah, behave similarly for vertical curves, and the settings that you have here are going to be what populates when you go into your vertical optimization for, well, your class that are annotated at the bottom here. But with that, I won't go into too much detail on design standards because they do interact with our next topic. And with that, Erin.
Awesome. So our next topic, as we quickly run out of webinar time, is cross-section templates. So for those of you who are not too familiar with them, a quick intro. So cross-section templates in RoadEng are essentially like mini programs that define an alignment's geometry. They can include parameters like your width, surfacing depth, whether it includes ditches, benches, berms, cut and fill slopes. All of these templates, as you build them, they have embedded logic, and you can kind of see that logic shown here in the template editor as the template adjusts depending on sort of the conditions it's in, whether it's in cut, it's in fill, it's going to have, dynamic updates. Okay, so that's what a cross-section template is, mini program, lots of logic, very useful and very customizable. So in its most basic form, there's default templates in the software, and those can be customized by essentially modifying a fillable form. So here in the little example I've got up on the screen, we're changing the road width just by modifying the value in it. And I guess important to note, we do templates in sort of left and right sides. So here, a width of 5 meters, we'd modify both the left side and the right side's fillable form to say the width of 2.5. So there's lots of other ways you can customize cross-section templates. And this is really, again, I would probably encourage you, go check out one of our cross-section templates webinars. We are going to skim this one. But you can, obviously leverage those defaults in the software, update them with a fillable form essentially. So that's one way to create and customize a template. Another way is to leverage our e-library. So the e-library has all these folders that have extra components, and you can copy and paste these components and bring them into your template. And a component could be something like a barrier that you're going to add alongside a portion of your road. So you can bring that in, create a new template, and customize it for however you would like. So leveraging those components in the e-library. You can also customize component or templates by importing a template table. For example, if you have a colleague who's already gone through the effort of setting up a template to match your specifications, you can get the template from them and import it into your design. So Matt's going to cover a little bit of that one as well. And then finally, the most complicated way to customize a template is building it from scratch. If you're on support and a support subscriber, let us know. Happy to send you our recent webinar on how to fully customize a template, including all the gory details. So that's, the fourth and final way to customize a template. And with that, Matt, we are going to be tight on time, so passing it back to you.
Yeah, I will go very very high level on this one. All right, so we've got our template in here. So home, templates, I see I've got my defaults. So when you install the software, it'll depend on the version you have, but there's one called DF, and then there's a rural road and an urban road. Or if you have the civil install, it'll be the rural will be your DF, so default, and then your gravel road will be resource. For this, if I want to make a new template, and I'm not going to use the library, I'm just going to make it same as the default, but we'll change the name. We'll call it wide. And we'll go in here and we'll make that road width, instead of being a 6 meter wide road, we'll make it a 9 meter wide road. So as Aaron said, it's basically a fillable form, and we've got where we make our changes and it's done. Now, if we wanted to use this on a future project, we'd hit save table. And from that, we could bring in what we'd actually like, or if we hit save table and saved over at normal.tpl, then it's going to be what appears when you open the software. So this is one that, it doesn't always make sense to overwrite your normal. Maybe you're doing some kind of specialized type of project and you just want to save that. But when you start working on that project or that type of project again, you want to bring it in. So in this case, it is that. I've got a wind farm project here and I'd like to use my wind farm template. So mine is not saved in the default directory. I've it saved with my project. And I've clicked open. So one big thing that is going to happen when I click open, instead of adding to my list of templates, it's going to replace all of those templates. Another big thing that's worth noting is those curve specs that you have that we just introduced. They also get saved with template. So when I click open, this list is entirely new. It's based off of the template file opened. And this one, it looks normal here, but when I go to somewhere where I've got a, well, let's go ahead here. So if when I go ahead to say there, I've got my pad automatically being accounted for. So I'll hit OK here. We'll see the geometry changes of our project. And the other thing that we'll do is, let's go back and look at this curve that we were playing with. So here we've got a different widening, and it's read in the TPL file that was associated with my wind farm specs. So it's really nice. You don't have to go through and worry about individual tables. You can package these things together for kind of mobility to use them on other projects. Yeah, so we've got that set there. We've got that. With this, I'm also going to just mention that we can retrieve stuff that's not just our default. So here I'm going to change my screen layout to better represent what I'd like to look at here. So I've got a screen layout just for my wind farm projects. It's a little different, not outrageously so, but a bit. Now, just don't want to make sure I missed anything. So that is opening a table. If we'd rather merge something in, so here I've got all this slope. If I'd like to different template there that I've already created, but I don't want to replace this whole list, I can click that merge button and we'll go up here and we are going to bring in merge instead of open, bring that in. I've got an option for, okay, out of all the templates in that list, which one do I want to bring in? And in this case, it's only one, so there's one to select. and there. So it's added in. And now we apply those templates wherever we'd like. So in this case, I'll go from 290 to 410. I'll just do it on the right side. And there we are. So we've both opened a template and we've merged a template. And we can see it's being displayed the way we'd like because we've got a screen layout set up to show it the way we want to see it. With that, I will hand it back to Erin.
Perfect. So our third last topic, ground types. These are essentially like, an important part of your design. A lot of people use the defaults, but you can set up your own ground types, put them into a library. These will be your costs, your materials, and your geotechnical properties. And all of that is included in that library, and then you can save and share that as well. So again, ground types, really rushed explanation for it. Perhaps Matt will do a little bit of a better job. So I'm going to pass it back to him.
All right. So here I've got my project. Same project. We've got, well, I don't actually have subsurfaces assigned, but we've got our ground types table, and I've got my default ground type set up to have certain geotechnical parameters. So I've got my cut and fill slope defined. And we could use a fixed value rather than basing it off the material we're in. We've got our expansion compaction factors defined, and we can change those by material. Now, if we want, we can add in a new material. So we could just say clay, and we could change those parameters to be whatever we'd like for that material. And then we could hit save, and we could use that on our next project. And usually folks will set up their ground types, the materials that they're commonly encountering in their location and their projects that they're dealing with. Aside from just the material aspect of it, we've got costs as well. So here, if we've got, say, solid rock, it's going to cost a lot more than excavating gravel. So we can set that up as part of our ground types table. So for this one, I'm going to hit recalculate and recost. With my default settings, I've got a total cost for my project at 166, and that's in thousands of dollars. If we would rather use, I'm going to click open. I'm going to use something that I've set up to be more representative of local conditions. So I've got this 2-haul cost. I've got some extra materials in there, and I've got different material costs. So I can see my unit costs are much more, but I've got my movement costs are much higher. So I'll hit OK. I'll click recost, and we'll see what we're dealing with here. So we can quickly use those ground type tables to influence our cuts and fills, which we really focus on here, but we can also use it to help use that design time costing functionality or the optimization functionality. And with that, I'll pass it back to Erin.
Excellent. Okay, second last topic. We're going to just take a brief look at culverts, how you can customize them, and how you can update your defaults within the culvert editor panel. So the culvert panel itself has a whole bunch of different options for how you can customize a culvert. That could be the structure, whether it's a box culvert or an arch, the class of culvert. And then we've got a whole bunch of fields that typically have auto applied to them. So that could be the length, the vertical position, the skew, the gradient. So in this portion of the webinar, we're just going to show you how you can uncheck auto and explore some of these different parameters, as well as how you can set your default and change it so you can have that apply to all the culverts in your project. Okay, Matt, it's coming back your way.
All right, so culvert panel. We can click add. We have that option for what class pipe we're going with. So if it's basically if it's a stream or a cross stream. So if it's a stream, the stream checkbox is ticked. If it's not a stream, well, we'll leave it unticked. So I've brought that in. So I've got this pipe added in here, and here we can, I'll just zoom in. So my defaults are set that my gradient is semi-auto. So what that is I've got it set to be at a 2% grade, and it's pointing that grade in the right direction. So we don't have to worry about trying to make water go uphill. If we were to have auto set, apply, and it's going to match the crossfall of the, well, from your catchment point to the outside. Skew, usually if you're setting your standard, usually we'll leave this as auto if we're going to hit defaults save, but totally can adjust it and hit apply, and we see we've changed the skew. And of course our length is, well, setting the length for our pipe. And where am I at in the grand scheme of things? And we'll just turn this on so we can see our pipe in there. So here we can see the skew, and the length is being set to go from well, inside to outside, projected onto the road cross section. We could turn off auto if we wanted to, but by leaving auto on, it's figuring out how long it should be given the skew and the cross section at that point. If we want to change our size, so maybe I want to have this as a 400. You can set that, and now it's a 400. So for this, I'm going to just change this back to be 90. I've got my gradient set to be that. And if I want that to be my defaults, I'll hit defaults, save. If I leave save to disk for future designs unchecked, it's just controlling the defaults in my current. If I check it, it's going to be used in the next time I open the software and start a new design. So I'm going to go over here, we'll hit OK, and there we are. We've dumped in a 400, and the gradient is set to auto, so it's matching that cross. We don't have a hung pipe at 2%, which we would have if we left it as is. And that's really it. And the only other thing would be if we had a stream and we check the stream checkbox, and we could set a different set of standards. So maybe we were defaulting to a 1500 for our stream crossings. Yeah, but meant to be easy to use, is easy to use. You can see everything that we have going on. And with that, I'll pass it back to Erin.
Awesome. Last topic, guys. Thank you for hanging in there a little bit later. So now we're going to tackle multiplot. So multiplot is essentially our paper space equivalent. So that's where you can create construction output sheets. It is directly connected to your design, and it does update dynamically. Now, all of the views, though, can be individually customized and kind of separated from your views that you're seeing. So for example, your plan view in regular plan window does not need to be identical to the plan window that you have in multiplot, but the alignment's position and all the details about the alignment are dynamically connected. Now these unique views, obviously highly customizable, can be saved as either a book layout. So, oh gosh, I feel like we're trying to cram a whole multiplot webinar into one slide. Multiplot has a really unique structure to it. So we've got an ability to have different types of pages. And that collection of different page types, we refer to it as a multiplot book. And that book layout can be saved. So you can then reuse an entire set of different page types on another project. Conversely, if you wanted to save just a particular page type, we call that a chapter. So obviously, chapters within a book, pages within a chapter. Hopefully you're following along. We can save that chapter as well. So it gives you the ability to really save and reuse and combine layouts from your project in this paper output space. And it's really, one of the, I think my favorite parts of RoadEng is multiplot, just given its versatility and efficiency to be able to generate these outputs. We're going to briefly skim it in the essence of time, and I certainly, we'll chat with our planning team, get a multiplot webinar on the calendar, because we do need one again, where we could spend a full hour chatting all the fun of multiplot. And with that, Matt, last time, passing it back to you.
All right, so I've got my design, and if I'm happy with it and want to put it kind of pen to paper and actually produce a document, I'll click that little icon down here and we'll switch to our multi-plot view. Now for this, we've got pages inside a chapter inside of a workbook. So you can totally go through and build out this multi-plot document entirely from scratch. So if I wanted to build out a plan over profile, I could add in my plan, I could add in my profile, and we could position these however we'd like and go from there. Yeah, and I'm gonna go quick for the sake of time. The more common thing to do would be to say, okay, I want to do a size D sheet. So I'd change my page size and I'd go over to the Access Web Library. And again, if I'd never set one of these up from scratch, I'd probably go on here and use something as a jumping off point. And we can customize this however we'd like. So on this particular example, let's reduce the real estate associated with our subviews, and we'll make that a little less stretched. So we can customize it. And then if we were happy with this, we could save the chapter for future use. And then once we built our document out that had, well, a collection of chapters to make a workbook, we could save that whole workbook for future use. And rather than kind of going through the nitty gritty here, I'm going to open up a workbook. It's one that I've got set up here. So again, I've got my title page, my plan over profile, and then I've got my sections. So great, I've got this whole document contained. Now, if it was a case where I don't really like this sections chapter, I can totally delete it. And since I've previously saved some other chapters that I like, I can go add new. And let's grab this guy here. So what we see in the dropdown is what's in the default directory. If we had it saved somewhere else, we can just click retrieve and actually navigate to it. But yeah, I want this one here. And really similar to what we had, just this one I've already added in a legend for my section views. So that is kind of the essence of it. The multi-plot stuff is set it up, and as you're setting it up the first time, folks are usually cognizant that I'd like to use this again in the future. And once they have it set up the way they'd like, they'll save out the individual chapters and or the book as a whole. Last kind of nuance in there that I will mention. Things like the plan and the profile will follow the road along for more pages if we had a longer road here. In doing that, occasionally folks will want to move something around. So in this case, it might be that they want that a little more centered. So I can move that around using the keyboard. So I'm holding in shift and using the arrow keys. I could have also hit scroll, and I could have done this tabularly. When I'm building something that I want to use as a template in the future, I'm going to make sure I have those set as auto. And then that way, when I'm on a different project in a different location, the scroll it's going to is not going to be based off of the coordinates for this spot. It's going to cycle through and follow my design. And it's not the end of the world if you mess that up either. It's just a matter of going in there and turning auto on. So with that, I think I've covered what I was hoping to cover, and certainly went longer than expected. So sorry about that.
Yeah, and just
Get rid of.
on that scroll piece, I know, Matt, you've got your grid displayed here, but there is an icon. So if you are reusing a layout, um, on another project and you're wondering why it's not in the right position, there is an icon if it has scroll enabled to be anything but auto to show that it's manually scrolled. It's in the little corner. It just gives you a visual clue to know that you've got something that is set to something not auto so that you can remove it in the future. So if, yeah, it comes in a little bit wacky, to check for that scroll piece. We have a whole bunch of really awesome questions sitting in our chat. Given that we are already 16 minutes over, we are going to respond to you all individually, but those are outstanding questions. Thank you for asking them. Hopefully everyone today kind of got a sense of some of the different elements and areas that we can customize RoadEng. Again, we covered an awful lot of ground. We talked about different ways to customize the interface, different ways to customize the different design elements. Again, especially on those design element topics, they certainly are, yeah, worthy of full webinars. And we'll try to include some links to some great resources in our follow-up email. But yeah, we hope that you learned something a little bit today, learned about how you can share and leverage some of those efficiencies. And if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to our support team. We're happy to answer your questions. And with that, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day ahead. Good evening to those of you who are, yeah, in a nighttime time zone, and good morning to those of you who got up really early, looking at you guys in New Zealand and Australia. Thank you for being with us, and we'll see you guys at the next webinar.
Thanks, everyone.